So, The Climb.
Fine.
Where did this film originate from, and what inspired you guys to tell this story?
My ex-girlfriend slept with one of my friends, and then I was thinking about it on a bike ride.
So that was true. That actually
part was.
happened.
And then,
It wasn't me, it was someone else.
and then we made a short film about, just that, based on that sort of concept that was like a funny kind of execution of one friend revealing to the other that he slept with his ex-girlfriend, and then the other being out of shape and chasing him up the hill. And then
That went to Sundance.
that went to Sundance, and we loved the characters, and we loved the kind of the dynamics between the characters, and wanted to play with those a little more. So we developed it into a feature.
So what compelled you to start the feature with you dropping this bomb on Kyle's world?
Well, it was just a great jumping off point for a story, because
Yeah.
it was sort of like, if we start there, then where do we go from there? And I think the fun thing became like, really, you can go anywhere as long as you know that these two characters, this is their dynamic, and it's sort of never going to change,
There's something beautiful about like the French New Wave, where they would set their movies up like that often, where it was like the thing that most movies would build toward happened in the first 30 seconds to 5 minutes,
Yeah.
and then you were just like, what happens with the story? And that's sort of a really fun place
Gotcha.
to go.
So how did you guys meet originally?
In New York on a commercial.
Okay.
Yeah. I was acting, and he was the creative director.
So you always wanted to do filmmaking, both of you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you're watching the movie, you can see how real and honest your friendship is. I was curious how much of your real life friendship was carried over into the movie.
Well, I think our love for each other
Yeah.
and the shorthand that we have definitely carried over into the movie. I don't think us as human beings are our characters. So that there was a very big differentiation between church and state in that way, I think, when we were performing, and then when we were doing the work behind the scenes that goes into making
I think
the
the
movie.
thing that just carried over is like our, the way we speak to each other and play off each other. Like, I'm just constantly screaming at it. No, kidding. No, but I think we are friends in real life. We have that easy sort of dynamic, and we're very sort of close. So I think that allowed us to find sort of like a natural rhythm to the friendship in the film, even if it's sort of not based in anything on our real dynamic.
So long takes are obviously prominent throughout the whole film. Was that an early decision to shoot the film that way? And what inspired you to make the film that way?
Yes, that was the early decision. The short film, which we used as the springboard into the feature, was a long take itself.
Okay.
And so that sort of, there's something that we latched onto both in terms of the tone and in terms of the way we were doing comedy in that first short, which was continuous, that we realized was interesting for us, and I think interesting for viewers to explore as you watch it in a feature form. I think a lot of times the long takes are used for dramatic purposes,
Right.
and comedy is really about rhythm. So being able to sort of make comedic rhythm in long takes, I think, is a really magical, though complicated approach.
So how many variables do you have to account for when shooting takes that go on for 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes?
Well, a lot. I mean, it really depends on the scene, but I think that was one of our big calculations before every scene, is how do we like limit the number of variables? Because, like with the opening bike ride scene, there was obviously like the speed at which we rode up the hill, the pace at which we delivered the dialogue, random cars that happened to blow by our roadblocks to come down the street, the riders who had to pass us at a certain time, an actor who's driving a car who needs to get cued at a certain moment, and then the fact that we have to get to the top of the hill, and then like all these sort of, there were a lot of variables, which is what made that scene like particularly challenging.
Right.
And so I think with other scenes, we just tried to limit them, but somehow we found ourselves sort of with just as many challenges oftentimes. And I think our approach became, get one thing down, make sure everyone can do that perfectly, then get the next thing down, make sure everyone can do that perfectly, and then so on and so on. And then once you sort of were able to like do one thing, do each of the things in the right timing, the right way, then eventually you could get to the place where you could just focus on performance.
Gotcha.
And then the weather would come in and destroy the whole thing. Like I remember on that writing the opening shot, we had finally got a rhythm, and then we were like, all right, let's go down and reset, and we were riding down and just rode into complete fog. And we were like, okay, maybe you'll remember this, maybe it'll burn off. And so there's one take where it's like, you can barely see us for the whole movie because we're just fading in and out of.
Did you have to call the whole day at that point?
No, we just stuck it out, and we were like, we're doing it again, and we went back down, and it burned off, and we ended up getting
A couple,
take.
yeah.
So why The Climb? How did you land on that title?
Because it was a hill and we had to go up it.
Valid? No, that's valid. Because that was originally the short film, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I
it was.
gotcha. I gotcha.
Yeah, it just, I mean, we named it The Climb because it was based on the short film, and we experimented with some other titles, but never landed on anything that we thought was more fitting. And then as the movie went on, and as we sort of contemplated about like the relationship and the whole thing, it just felt like it fit.
Okay. Yeah. So what were some of your favorite films growing up? What inspired you to be into filmmaking?
I loved Kill Bill.
Okay.
That was a big one. I've never said that one before.
Heard you say that.
Yeah.
What movies? Like the Farrelly Brothers, Monty Python,
Yeah, Monty Python. For sure.
the Coen Brothers. Trying to think, like what are my actual like.
Caddyshack for me was actually.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
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 it was
you
a
know,
big one. That was
just amazing. I mean, Jim Carrey was like,
Yeah.
and sort of someone I looked up to probably more than anyone. But you know, people who you know, films that we love slapstick comedy,
Yeah.
but also I think really like love films that are sort of contributing to cinema in some way,
Right.
also, which slapstick can also do. But I think so. I think what's interesting is like our foundation for we speak the same language in terms of the foundation of what our cinematic influences or loves are. But then we've also like grown into our own version. You know, like to just study great cinematic masterpieces and figure out ways to sort of be influenced by them, if that makes sense. So like. So you know, there's like an aspiration to make something great and use the camera in a way that's saying something or doing something or contributing, and you know, to like making a comedy, but shooting it in a way that maybe feels fresh, but also understanding that like the movies that we've always loved are just like straight comedies.
Yeah.
I think the amazing thing about cinema is that you can never really consume
Too much.
it all. Yeah, and I find myself constantly being fascinated by one thing and it opening up a doorway into pieces of cinema that I had never known existed. Where I just got into the Czech New Wave and I'm like, what? This whole world just opened up to me. So I think we have this foundation of like American comedy.
Right.
I think American and maybe British, at least myself, some British comedy. But I think you stack on top of that the layers of all the things we've then consumed since, and that sort of becomes a new thing.
Yeah, yeah. So did you guys always envision making it into a feature eventually, or was that a decision made kind of after the short was already completed?
Yeah, I mean, it was more just, it was definitely envisioned. It was just a question of if there would be the opportunity to. And I think once we got into a really great film festival with the short, that became that became a possibility.
Okay. So I got to ask, why is Mike always trying to sabotage Kyle's life?
I think he's doing it because I think he thinks he's doing it for Kyle's good, or for, you know, sometimes for Kyle's good, but I think he comes up with justifications that aren't entirely selfish, even though they are most likely entirely selfish, you know?
I think both characters really want to help each other, and the way that they do it might always be the most sensible.
Right.
But I think the foundational love on which that is based is always genuine and honest and very human.
Agreed. Well, guys, thank you so much. It's been a real
Thank you.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.